one of the things I wanted to ask you is if you could go back and tell your white belt self, what would you do differently in terms of taking care of your body? And I mean, really, all of it, whatever you want to touch on. But like, that's something I think about a lot. Is if I could go back in time to my white belt self when I first started training, which for me was a long time ago now, at like 16 or so, and
over 10 years.
Yeah, and so I would tell myself a lot of things. But I want to hear what you would do, what you would say.
So there's definitely things that I do better now, in terms of like managing like my nutrition and things like that. But if I could go back in time and talk to myself then, believe it or not, I was actually way more accountable on stretching whenever I was a white belt. It was weird. It's like the more skill that I started to possess and the more time that I made available to spend on the mats, it's just like focusing more on that mat time and those rolls, and then I'm like stretching even less and less. So if anything, there is actually some things that I would like tell myself as like a white belt, things that I was doing right. Don't stop doing those. Like I know whenever I got my blue belt is whenever I pretty much stopped taking notes and stuff, and I'm just now getting back into note taking as a purple belt. Right. So as a white, like if I can go back in time, be like, don't ever stop taking those notes.
Right.
Never stop taking those notes. Like be that dork with the notepad that's recording everything. Write down your thoughts, all that other stuff. Reflect on your roles. So don't stop doing that. Don't stop doing your stretching routine, things of that nature. But then the biggest thing that if I can go back in time on is that like you knew me whenever I first started training, and like the growth that interacting with like the people in the jiu-jitsu community and things of that nature like really helped me like kind of burst out through my shell and stuff. So for me personally, it would be like not be so hard on yourself,
right?
And like understand like now that I've gone through the ringer a bit, and granted there's still like a lifetime to go through the process. I mean, it's only been 6 years deep, but I would just basically say like, just because you get submitted or tapped or someone passes your guard or sweeps you or knocks you over, like don't take it so personally. Don't treat it like it's the end of the world.
Right.
Have the maturity to understand that it's like trial and error, give and take. Maybe I would even go back and tell myself like, hey, you don't need to be rolling so hard all the time.
Right.
Have like a more relaxed state of mind. Right? Yeah, right? Yeah, exactly. Like everyone kind of like seizes up and they're a bit too tense in the beginning, or they're too like lackadaisical. But yeah, if I can go back in time, it would be basically like mentally give yourself some reprieve. It's like don't be so hard on yourself, or don't like beat yourself up, and like what you're not able to do and things like that. Understand that it's a process of like getting better at something. So that's the biggest thing, because physically I was always kind of like OCD on how I took care of myself.
Right.
Like how can I maximize having the best energy for class? It's like, okay, well I need to eat nutritious and good food.
Right.
And like that's how I'm going to maximize like my good energy on the mats and stuff, and just things of that nature that I always was pretty good at. But the mental stuff, that's what I would definitely go back and fix for myself. What about you? If you can remember.
No, yeah, definitely. I mean, first off, everything you touched on is dead on the money. I don't know, like I said, who wouldn't tell themselves to slow it down a little. And the biggest thing when it comes to the rolling is, and it's something I tell the white belt students all the time. Sometimes when you give your training partner a little, you'll see something that you never saw before, and you'll see some things that, and it's part of killing the ego in jiu-jitsu. Because when you're first starting, you're going directly to the kill. You're going as fast as you can get to a submission. You're going there. And then is as you start to get older in your career, like especially as a purple belt, is the first stage that I would say this is really true at. You have the ability, especially rolling with white belts, to you could put them out in very quickly if you wanted to. But if you do that's gonna hinder you both greatly, right? It's gonna slow your acceleration, and it's also gonna not only deter your training partner, but slow him as well. He's not gonna really get much out of it, just getting his butt kicked over and over again. Yeah. So sometimes rolling with somebody, especially when you maybe have a skill advantage on them, and you give them a little bit so you can see something you never saw before, or not having the ego to say, you put your training partner in an arm bar and you almost get all the way, but you realize that you're gonna really have to go hard on it, or just letting it go to move on to something different, because you don't have to feel the validation of him tapping out. Mm-hmm. You realize, I had it, I can move on. There's no need in your own head to even make him think that you submitted him. So that's one of the biggest things I would actually probably say to my white belt self is I would start to to realize it's a game more. Because when I first started training, it was all about self defense to me. I was a really small kid. I wanted to learn how to defend myself, and that was the biggest thing. But I wish I could learn back then and realize back then that it's just a game. Right. And once you start seeing it as a game and not a life or death situation, or I can't get tapped and I have to get the tap, I think that's when you're going to start to really see your skill and growth, accelerate tremendously. So that would be one of the biggest things I would tell my white belt self. The other thing would just be to start taking care of them. I mean, just take care of yourself, like with what you eat, with the amount of movements you're doing. I didn't start stretching until like a blue belt, purple belt. Like I didn't start stretching at all. Like I wasn't doing anything.
I mean, you mainly started getting into stretching whenever you got more into yoga.
Yeah,
like doing yoga is what got you into like taking care of like more bodily awareness.
Yeah.
Like you became a lot more aware of your body and stuff like that. Then
once I started doing yoga, it was this whole inward look of what I had to redefine what strength was in my own head, in my own mind, because I used to think lifting heavy all the time. That was, man, those guys are strong. They can lift that weight, right? It was easy to see that as a young 20-year-old, but yoga made me completely redefine what I looked as true strength as, and it's made me just want to be able to move my body in a way without any even like external weights, be able to move my body in a way that no one else can. And when we think about our sport, our goal is not to be able to power lift 500 pounds once. Our goal is to pick up somebody close to our body weight, potentially repetitively over the course of an extended period of time.
right.
So I had to completely redefine like what I'm trying to be and what I'm trying to look like, because I was a lot of the times I would be lifting weights, even training while I was training jiu-jitsu. I was lifting weights just to look good, just to try to like look the part.
Yeah.
And once I stopped trying to lift weights to look the part and started actually like doing the exercises that I felt like my body was calling for, like that was when things began to change and I started to feel better, and started to climb myself out of these deep pits that I had dug myself.